I wanted to show other people what I was doing. You're telling your friends that you're out there skydiving. If you didn't have anything to show them, forget it. But when they see still images, at least, on the rare occasions you had film, then you could have fun. You could go to parties, you could show this stuff. I'm sure a lot of my friends thought, oh man, here comes Forbes. He's gonna bring all these videotapes over.
I'd love to have you just introduce yourself.
Randy Forbes. I started in the sport back in 1972 and always wanted to jump from airplanes, and finally got the opportunity when a guy walked into a place where I was working when I was going to college who had a tri-state sport parachuting patch, and I asked him all the stupid questions you could ask anyone about parachuting. About 2 weeks later, I made my first jump. That was it. I started bolting cameras on my head in 1972 because I wanted to film it. I wanted to stick cameras on my head. I wanted to see other people do it and then me get the right angle and capture it well. So that's what I've always been about. I got a strong interest in photography when I was 10. My grandfather, he had a nice little Kodak rangefinder camera, but it was a nice camera. And I asked my dad, I said, can I have Papa's camera? And he said, sure. And that got me started. Then I became the school photographer. And then my dad was in broadcasting. And so in a small town in Indiana, Terre Haute, Indiana, I worked for a television station there when I went to college. Basically it was news photography, but we did everything on film. So I got very interested, very wrapped up in photography. So it was a natural transition for me to put cameras on my head. I wanted to stick cameras on my head. I wouldn't have done it on the first jump. I was too scared. I was mortified. But after about 30 or 40 jumps, when I started becoming a little more comfortable with it, I wanted to start sticking cameras up there, and they just frowned on that. I think back in those days, it was almost like you had to have at least 100, maybe 200 jumps before, they let you do that. But they let me do it. I pushed it and pushed it. Actually had my first helmet-mounted camera before I met Carl Boenish, and he actually helped me make this thing work. I had a counterweight on the back of it because I didn't know about the chin strap at the time. And when he saw it, he had his crazy laugh, and he says, come over here. He goes, takes a crescent wrench out, unbolts the thing. He says, here, do whatever you want to do with this. And he put on a little chin strap, and he says, when you get home, you want to make a part that goes under here so it stays on your chin, but this way it'll work for you this weekend. And man, I was off and running. It was so cool. And he was the master to me, always will be. I had just seen Masters of the Sky a couple of weeks before then. I hadn't even seen Gypsy Moths yet, but I had known he had done a movie, a major motion picture. And I was a little nervous seeing him. My knees were knocking, I think, but I was shooting this guy as he landed. And then to have him come over and help me with my first helmet-mounted camera was just an honor. It was a total honor. Now you have a lot of camera flyers, a lot of skydivers wearing cameras. Back then there weren't so many. There were a few, but Carl he was the pinnacle. He was the guy. He was always connecting cameras to different places. He was always looking for a new opportunity, a new thing to film and to experiment with, and that's what I loved about him. And to have this guy come over and help me was just, I get goosebumps thinking about it now. It was tough in the beginning because the equipment was cape wells and military surplus equipment. That's what I started jumping on. A lot of everybody back in those days started jumping with that stuff. We had ripcords, and you pull a ripcord, and out from the back would come a pilot chute. And in my case, we used to stack them. We'd stack 2 MA1 pilot chutes on there. Two's got to be better than one, right? And there was no easy way to do it. I mean, you just had to grin and bear it. People ask me, so you skydive? And I go, no, but I film people who do. That's what I wanted to do, and that's what I've been doing, the capturing of it, the aerial capture. For me, it's always been about that.